You know that feeling when you finally decide to upgrade your home gym, you order a cheap fold-up rack or a set of adjustable dumbbells, and a month later you're still wrestling with wobbling frames, limited weight stacks, and a whole lot of wasted floor space? I've been there, and the regret that follows a budget-only decision can make you think twice about any future purchase. That hesitation is what drove me to actually sit down, map out the kinds of workouts I do every week, and then compare a handful of all-in-one stations before I even opened the box on the Gym Monster 2S. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this review, I'll walk through whether this machine feels like a smarter buy or just another expensive piece of furniture you'll end up avoiding. First, let's talk about the problem most home gym shoppers face. You want a full-body setup that lets you squat, bench, pull, and do rows without having to buy 3 separate pieces of equipment, but you also don't have a garage the size of a warehouse. The Gym Monster 2S promises a compact and space-saving design while still delivering a 260-pound digital weight system and AI-guided training. The claim is bold, and the reality is a little more nuanced. The footprint of the unit is roughly the size of a standard power rack, but because the weight plates are integrated into a single column and the machine folds a bit for storage, you can actually slide it against a wall and still have room for a yoga mat or a cardio machine. That's a practical win for anyone living in an apartment or a small house where every square foot counts. Now, if you're the type of person who thrives on structure, the AI-powered coaching feels like a digital personal trainer that actually remembers your previous sessions, suggests progressive overload, and even nudges you when your form drifts. The system uses a digital interface on the console to track the weight you're lifting, the number of reps, and the rest intervals, then suggests the next workout based on your goals. For a beginner who's overwhelmed by the sheer number of strength training variations, that guidance can cut down the learning curve dramatically. On the flip side, if you're an experienced lifter who already has a solid program in mind, you might find the AI prompts a bit intrusive, especially if you prefer to adjust your sets on the fly without the machine asking if you're ready for the next round. Let's break down the day-to-day experience. I set the machine up in my living room, plugged it into a nearby outlet, and spent about 10 minutes aligning the squat rack height and calibrating the digital weight selector. The assembly isn't as simple as snapping a couple of bolts together, but it's also not a full-scale garage build. The biggest hidden trade-off is the time you'll spend learning the console navigation. The touchscreen is responsive, but the menus can feel layered, and it takes a few workouts to remember where the quick select weight presets are. Once you've got that down, the transition between exercises is smooth. You can move from a barbell squat to a seated row, then to a chest press, all by rotating the weight stack and swapping the bar attachment. The machine really shines when you're short on time and want a circuit that hits every major muscle group without having to re-rack a barbell or change plates. Practical strengths start with the digital weight system. Because the resistance is controlled by an electric motor rather than a traditional plate stack, you get smooth, incremental changes as small as 5 pounds. That's a big plus for progressive overload when you're aiming to move from 115 pounds to 120 pounds on a bench press. You don't have to buy a whole new set of plates. The system also logs your total volume, which is useful if you track progress in a spreadsheet or an app. Another strong point is the versatility. The Gym Monster 2S includes a squat rack, a bench that can be set to incline, decline, or flat, a pull-up bar, and a low-row attachment. For anyone who wants to run a full-body strength routine without buying a separate power rack, bench, and cable machine, this does the job. Where the machine shows its limits is in the maximum load. The 260-pound capacity is generous for most recreational lifters, but powerlifters or serious strength athletes who regularly squat 300 pounds or more will quickly outgrow it. The digital motor also means you're dependent on a reliable power source. A brief outage will pause your session, and while the unit has a battery backup for the console, the weight stack itself won't move without electricity. If you're planning to use the machine in a basement with an older wiring system, you might need to consider an upgrade. Lastly, the compact claim is relative. While it does occupy less floor space than a traditional multi-station, You still need a clear area of about 4 by 6 feet for safe movement, especially during squats and overhead presses. Who should buy the Gym Monster 2S? If you're